Good evening and welcome to this edition of Newsnight featuring the old man of the clan, Andrew Mwenda. He is the managing director of The Independent. My name is Charles Odongtho, and today we look at 33 years of the UPDF. Initially NRA, the National Resistance Army, but now the National Army, Uganda People's Defense Forces. This week they have been marking with several activities that Tarehe Sita. Andrew, today we are talking about the army that you love so much. What is it that you can put your hand on?
First of all, where did you get this idea that I love it so much?
Of course you have to love an institution of the country, of the nation, don't you? I do,
So
except
you
that this turn was for me to talk. But you can say the same of me, can't you? Shouldn't you?
First of all, I should say I am an admirer of the UPDF, but I don't want you to assume that simply because something is a national institution of Uganda, I would love it because it's a national institution of Uganda.
Okay, tell me, what is it that one or two things that you can put your hand on and say 33 years Ugandans should be proud of?
First of all, I should tell you, Charles, that if you ask President Yoweri Museveni, he will not say 33 years. He would say 42 years because he says this army started in 1971 when he launched his struggle against Idi Amin. But if we take Tarehe Sita, that is February 6th when they attacked Kabamba, we could say UPDF has been a fairly successful army in the following things. One, it has been a highly disciplined army. A person like me who lived under UNLA, I was, arrested one time as a young boy of 12 years.
You were arrested?
Yes, by the soldiers.
Why?
They intimidated me at the roadblock. I was rescued by the NRA, the rebels, from a roadblock. So you can clearly see that the UNLA had, the army had run amok. You see, one of the credits I give Museveni is that Museveni has been able to tame the security services. You no longer, here and there have been excesses, like in 2001 there was a lot of excesses by CMI, but by and large they have been limited and episodal. They have been at episodes. There have been episodes, but under Milton Obote and under under Idi Amin, the army and the intelligence services acted over a long period of time to become the character of the army to terrorize the citizens. So UPDF has overcome that. But I also want to make a criticism of UPDF. Between 1989 and 2005, let me give this background. When Museveni came to power, he said that NRA was not going to scavenge on this taxpayer. It was going to be a productive army. So they set up NEC, National Enterprises Corporation, and they had a lot of businesses in fumigation, in ranches, in mattresses making, and pharmaceutical plants, many things.
This is the farm in Nakasongola?
Yes. These army enterprises were grossly mismanaged by the officers, and finally they had to be sold off or even liquidated. Now, the army that had come promising to be a productive army ended up becoming a springboard for private profiteers. So throughout the 90s, we saw the purchase of junk helicopters, purchase of junk tanks, purchase of junk 100mm anti-aircraft guns, expired food rations, undersized uniforms. Then they started placing ghosts on the army register. I did a lot of stories on ghost soldiers under Kazini. So the UPDF became one of the most corrupt institutions in Uganda. And as a consequence, by the way, of that corruption of the UPDF, when we confronted the Rwandan army in Kisangani, Eastern Congo, in 1999 and 2000, we were badly clobbered. The experience of us being beaten, and that's why I always tell you, always you need a war to bring people back to their senses.
So you think that it is because of that war that Rwanda and Uganda mended fences?
No, the defeat of the humiliating defeat of the UPDF at the hands of the Rwandan army taught President Yoweri Museveni that you need a much more professional army where corruption is limited, where there is more training, where there is a strong esprit de corps, where soldiers have proper uniforms, have proper leadership. You do not have to have a lumpen militariat in command of the army. And the reform started with the appointment of Aronda. And if you look at the UPDF now, the UPDF that went to Congo and suffered humiliating defeat is very different from the UPDF that went to Somalia and made this country proud.
Let's go back to the issue of Tarehe Sita is being celebrated this week, but we cannot divorce its weakness or its strength from the shortcomings that, President Museveni recently, is it 2 weeks ago or last week, during the NRM celebration in eastern Uganda, when the president mentioned that there was a problem in eastern Uganda, the Mukura, then there was a problem in northern Uganda. What do you make of this too?
I think that is politics. You do not read in between the lines. Who was the commander of the UPDF forces in northern Uganda when they arrested these Omar Atubos and then
It was Tinyefuza under Operation North.
Who was the commander of the Ugandan forces in eastern Congo and Mukura when it happened?
Are you saying that Museveni, President Museveni is bringing up is to make a fresh go
it seems
at
obvious,
General
yes.
Sejusa?
I think that this is just an attack on Tinyefuza rather than... And when,
but how
when
much
the other
does
commander Katumba Wamala said they're going to investigate, let me tell you, these things are always political. I think at President Yusuf, people are saying, oh, how could he admit this? I can tell you because they are going to say the officer responsible was Tinyefuza, and then you'll see a court-martial trial. And
but officer
like
is under the command of the commander-in-chief, who is President Museveni. And to what extent then, Andrew, does that affect the name, the good name of the UPDF? But
that is, you think that the public out there follow these things carefully? Everybody has been saying, oh, Museveni admitted at first. They do not know that he's setting a ground, I think.
Andrew, I actually think that Ugandans do. Ugandans are not gullible, because I had 2 or 3 people actually.
This is not about Ugandans, this is about human nature.
Thing.
This is about human nature. Human beings, we are very short. We have very short memories.
So what does it benefit President Museveni to relate what happened at Mukura, that unfortunate incident, to Sejusa? What does it benefit him?
Well, because because the ghosts of Mukura are still there, and you need to find a scapegoat, and that scapegoat will turn out to be maybe Tinyefuza. But if you present it around Tinyefuza alone, it may not sell. So you may need to find other areas. I'm sure if Tinyefuza was not in Mukura, they can find some crimes by him and then get another officer who will become a sacrificial lamb. More likely, I can tell you this, the guy who was responsible for Mukura either was from Rwanda, now went back to Rwanda, they cannot prosecute him, or is a soldier who died. Do you see? So then what will remain is a crime that happened in Gulu, and it happened under Tinyefuza, and then Tinyefuza will be presented as the villain who was responsible for the army. This was not the character of the NRA, and I would agree with Museveni on that, and this was just violence of an errant army officer, and you can even see he has run to exile, because that's how he has always been.
As we talk about Tarehe Sita, we cannot miss talking about the UPDF missions in, in now Southern Sudan, in Somalia, in peacekeeping operation, or whatever expedition like in South Sudan now. And they are talking about Pan-Africanism this week. What do you make of that? Do you think that the UPDF really, professionally, that should still be at the whims of President Museveni unilaterally, as he did going to South Sudan? Or we should
but you see, the UPDF, if you look at its history, the UPDF was created from scratch by President Museveni. And I can tell you, for as long as Museveni is president of this country, the UPDF will remain loyal to him personally and will have overriding control over it. Why? Because whoever is in that army was recruited by him, trained by him, promoted by him, and they owe loyalty, mentorship from him. That is natural. The second thing I would tell you is that the UPDF of 2014 is a highly professional, much more disciplined, less corrupt military. And that is why we have been very successful in Somalia, and we are going to be very successful in Sudan. In terms of the tactical aspects, strategically, I can tell you, UPDF presence in Somalia and in South Sudan will not build the state there. It can postpone, but it cannot stop the conflagration in those countries.
Will the UPDF outlive the person, President Museveni, in your view?
Of course. If you look, even other revolutionary armies of this nature, whether the Chinese People's Revolutionary, the Chinese People's Army, Vietnam, Cuba, Angola, you can see in Ethiopia, wherever it is, Rwanda, they are very durable militaries. Armies that are born of armed struggle may initially have personal loyalty to the founding father, but once he passes on, they retain a very strong institutional tradition.
That was Andrew Mwenda. Thank you so much for finding time to always come to this show. That was Newsnight.